I'm here today to talk about how to go gun shopping. Shopping. So, one of my favorite pastimes is to go gun shopping. So, how do you, what are the things you should consider when shopping for a handgun? Um, First and foremost, I'm going to ask you if you come in and I'm behind the counter, I'm going to ask you, what are you going to use the gun for? We get folks come in and they haven't really thought about this before. They're like, well, I want a gun that my whole family can use, a handgun that my whole family can use for home defense. Well, that's a challenge. And when we're talking about a whole family, we're talking about a lot of different hand sizes, a lot of different likes and dislikes for texture and all that other kind of stuff. And everybody should practice shooting the gun if they're going to use it for defense. So you're going to have to like to shoot the gun. So that's a pretty tall order for most families. So if you're talking about a home defense gun, you're probably talking about more than one if we're talking about for a family. So generally though, we're going to ask you what it's going to be used for, and you're going to tell me one of a couple of different answers. I'm going to use it just for fun at the range. I'm going to go ahead and use it for home defense, or maybe I'm going to carry a gun for defense. Whatever the purpose of the gun is, that's going to help us steer you towards a family of guns that are going to be best suited for what you're going to use it for. And then, revolver versus semi-auto, that's another consideration. Single action versus double action, all those types of things are factors that will help us steer you where you need to be, right? So, home defense gun, we're talking, it doesn't have to be easily concealable like this gun is right here. This gun is my everyday carry gun. It is the gun that I use whenever I'm out and about. But this isn't my home defense gun. No, I've got many better options out there for a home defense gun. And if you're worried about, using a long gun for home defense and you're dead set on using a handgun, okay, maybe a full-size handgun is your choice because you don't have to conceal it. And the larger it is, the more energy it absorbs, so less felt recoil. And, the easier it is to shoot, the easier it is to aim. You got a long sight radius versus a short sight radius, and a lot of different things to consider. This one is not my home defense gun. This gun is actually, I think you guys can probably see, has the anchor on there. That's my senior chief anchor. Over here it says once a chief, always a chief, and of course it's got the chief's birthday on it, April 1st, 1893. So as you can imagine, I didn't buy this gun to shoot a lot. I have shot it. I don't buy guns that I don't shoot, but I have shot this. And this isn't, SIG makes a great product, but this isn't the first choice when it comes to any defensive gun. It's got safety on it. I don't like having an external safety on it to remember to turn off. And, there's a lot of better options out there. And for our personal defense here in the home, we go with long guns anyway. So, what are you going to use it for? Get it steered into the right family of guns. Maybe you're going to use it as a plinker. This one right here with nice little red dot. It's fun for the whole family. When the family is old enough, obviously, to safely shoot. But nice little 22 could be what you're looking for to go plink at the range. Bottom line is we got to start off with that answering that question first. What are you going to use it for? Then from there, we're talking about caliber. If it's a defensive gun, we're going to try to steer you to either a 9 or bigger or a 38 special or larger in revolvers. 380s have definitely closed the gap in the last couple of years in order to be a serious consideration for defensive guns. And if that's what you can shoot accurately, there's nothing wrong with 380, that's for sure. But if you can shoot a 9, then shoot a 9 accurately, then I'm going to ask you to shoot a 9 instead, because it's got a little bit more stopping power. If you can shoot a 10 millimeter accurately, then why not use what you can, for defensive purposes, the most stopping power to stop an attack is better, right? So, or if you're just going to have fun at the range, then, Other things to consider is availability of the ammo, the price of the ammo, and those things are hugely in flux right now. But I would look at the traditional cost versus the fluctuations that we've been seeing in the market over the last 2 years, right? Generally now we're starting to see some of the common calibers start to come available more and more as days go by. I've heard CEOs from the different ammo manufacturing companies out there say they're running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the most common calibers, and we are starting to see the prices come down. Unfortunately, they're only coming down to, they're not going back to what they were pre-COVID, but that kind of thing happens. Inflation's hitting everything, so it's going to, of course, hit ammo too. The products that go into building ammo is going to drive that price up. So, they're more expensive, so they're going to drive the overall price up. So, when it comes to ammo, price and availability are definitely factors. So, if you've got a very odd, like there's a brand new 30 super carry caliber out there, and it's probably got some great reasons in order to use it. It's supposed to have as much power as a 9 or more. I think it actually is supposed to have 9 more. I haven't looked at the ballistics of it yet, but you can carry more. It gives you an extra 2 rounds in the same space. But here in Maryland, we can't even buy a gun that's chambered in 30 super carry yet, and the ammo is impossible to get. So I'm definitely not rushing out to try and get that on the handgun roster so I can buy it and keep it at home in my safe. Yeah, no, not happening. So some other things to consider is how it feels. Do you like the texture? Do you like how it feels in your hand? If you like the texture, great. This one over here, I use this in our classes quite a bit, and I pass it around, and I take it apart and use just the lower to pass around. But when I pass it around, I tell people to get a good grip and to see how they like the texture of this. And when the lower comes back up to the front of the classroom, I do a poll typically. And what I find is the men happen to love this one a lot more than women do. It's got a very aggressive, traditional FN type of a grip to it. And because of that, I like it. My wife hates it. Carla hates it. So you gotta like the texture. You gotta like the feel. And it's gotta fit too, right? So when it fits, generally this part of your fingers will be in that direction. They won't be facing off that direction or off that direction. When it's in your hand the right way, it will be generally in that direction, okay? And then your thumb over here should be able to reach the controls and eject things. Like, it's really hard for me to hit that magazine release, because it's hard to get to. Not a big deal. This isn't a defense gun to me. This is just a go shoot an IDPA event gun, right? So I can eject it with that finger right there, and I actually do when I'm shooting an event. That's what I do my ejections with. So I can reach the control to lock the slide back. If I wanted to, I could use it as a slide release. So my thumb can definitely reach that. It's just the magazine release that isn't perfect. But on my everyday carry gun, I absolutely can reach the magazine release, and I can reach the slide lock. And this gun it fits my hand perfectly. So those are things to consider. Red dot versus iron sights, right? So this has a rear sight built into the red dot, so I can still use the traditional sights that I'm used to, and that has helped me a lot in transitioning to a red dot. To be perfectly honest with you, when I present this gun and fire it, I'm presenting it using the iron sights predominantly, and then I go, oh, looky there's a red dot. Still not quite transitioned to the red dot. I will tell you, while I'm out at distance, I had this out at 50 yards and shooting, a head-sized piece of steel, and at 50 yards with the red dot, I could hit it every time, and bang, ting, bang, ting. It was a lot of fun. But I was slowing down significantly in order to make those shots at distance, so I could, focus on, okay, let's get the dot in there. So anyway, yeah, a lot of different things to consider. And the last thing that I'm going to tell you when you're out shopping for a gun is, don't buy a gun if you haven't pulled the trigger on the gun, tested the trigger, right? So if the trigger sucks and you've already bought it, you're stuck with it. Unless you go trade it in, you're going to get, pennies on the dollar compared to what you bought it for, because now it's a used gun. Ask the guy behind the counter, can I test fire this? Can I test the trigger out? And if the answer is no, because he doesn't want to dry fire it without dummy rounds, they should get you some dummy rounds. You should be able to, test fire it. So definitely, I'll never buy a gun that I haven't test fired or tested the trigger. So, and the last thing, since I got my Ruger Mark IV sitting here, it was something that just come to mind. The last thing I'll talk about considerations for choosing a gun is, so these Ruger Mark series guns have been around a long time. Mark 1, 2 to 3, and now the Mark 4. And one of the things that Mark 4 fixed, they were great guns. I've got a Mark II up in the safe that I've had since, that was my very first handgun that I ever bought. And I love my Mark II, but I don't shoot my Mark II, especially now that I have Mark 4s. And the reason why is because the Mark II is a pain in the butt to take apart. So is the Mark III, and so is, they all come, Mark 1, 2, and 3 all come apart the same. But this Mark IV, that's how it comes apart now. And how it goes back together is just in reverse. And so therefore, the takedown to clean it is just so much easier than that old Mark II is. And so that's another factor you might consider is, how hard is it to take it apart and clean it? If it requires a tool to take it apart, especially if it's a special tool. A simple, like some of the SASs or the SAS 365s, you need a screwdriver, just a regular flathead screwdriver, not a big deal. But if some of the other guns out there on the market require a specialized tool, and if it does, yeah, I got no use for it. That's just me personally. Maybe you don't care, but what I'm worried about is I lose that tool. Now I got to go make one or find one or improvise, right? So anyhow, those are some thoughts and some considerations when it comes to buying a gun. And, come on into the shop. We'll help you out. So remember, safety first, safety last, safety always.